I am William, 34 years old, and the architecture firm I spent the last decade building from the ground up was just stolen from me by my own flesh and blood. Before I tell you about the phone call that changed everything, the one where their high-priced lawyer was screaming so loud I had to hold the receiver away from my ear, I need you to understand exactly what happened in that conference room. But first, drop a comment below and let me know where you are watching from. It helps me feel a little less alone in this mess. The air in the conference room of Hartman Design Studio was stale, recycled, and thick with the scent of expensive perfume. It was Isabella's scent. It smelled like gardenias and money. My brother, Lucas, sat at the head of the mahogany table, my table, the one I had custom designed and built with my own hands when we finally moved out of the garage and into this downtown office. Lucas leaned back in my leather chair, spinning a gold pen between his fingers. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, or maybe a poster for a frat party gone wrong. He was 30 years old, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, and he had never worked a real day in his life. "Sign it, William," he said, his voice smooth, practiced, "or we'll make you lose everything. Not just the firm, the house, the reputation. We'll make sure you never draw another blueprint in this state again." Isabella, his fiancée, was standing by the window, looking down at the street. She was watching the valet park Lucas's brand new Porsche Panamera, the one he'd bought with the company credit card I hadn't canceled fast enough. She turned to me, her face a mask of bored indifference. "Don't be difficult, Will," she said. "It's just business. Family business." I looked down at the stack of documents in front of me. The paper was heavy legal bond. The text was dense. Transfer of majority ownership. Release of all claims. Resignation of William Hartman as CEO. It was a death sentence for my career. My lawyer, Sarah, wasn't there. They had timed this perfectly. Sarah was on a flight to Tokyo for a 2-week vacation, a trip she had been planning for a year. I was alone. Just me, my brother, his shark of a fiancé, and their lawyer, Victor Reyes. Victor was a small man with a big ego and a suit that was too shiny. He tapped a manicured finger on the signature line. "The terms are generous, Mr. Hartman, considering the allegations we are prepared to file." Allegations. That was their leverage. I looked at Lucas. "You're really going to do this? After everything I've done for you? I paid your tuition. I paid your rent. I bailed you out when you got arrested in Vegas." Lucas stopped spinning the pen. His eyes went cold. "You controlled me, William. You used Mom's money to hold a leash around my neck. You treated me like a child. You acted like a child," I said quietly. "And now I'm the boss," Lucas snapped. He slammed his hand on the table. "Sign the damn papers." I felt a tightness in my chest, a burning sensation that wasn't just anger. It was grief. I was looking at the little brother I used to carry on my shoulders, and I didn't recognize him. He was gone, consumed by greed and the poison Isabella had whispered in his ear. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I expected it to, but it was steady as a rock. "If I sign this," I said, looking Victor in the eye, "this is it. I walk away. No more lawsuits. No more threats against my license. No anonymous tips to the ethics board." "That is the agreement," Victor smirked. "Full immunity in exchange for full surrender." I looked at the signature line. William J. Hartman. I thought about the late nights, the weekends spent at drafting tables while my friends were at bars, the smell of sawdust and fresh paint, the first time we landed the Westfield contract. This firm wasn't just a business. It was my identity. It was the only thing I had left of our mother's legacy, or so I had thought. I uncapped the pen. The ink flowed black and permanent onto the page. Scritch scratch. I signed the transfer. I signed the resignation. I signed the non-compete. Isabella let out a small, satisfied breath. Lucas grabbed the papers before the ink was even dry, scanning them like he was looking for a winning lottery number. "Done," I said. I stood up. I felt strangely light. Empty, but light. "Leave your keys," Lucas said, not looking up. "And the laptop. Company property." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the brass key ring. The key to the front door. The key to the office. The key to the supply closet where we used to hide the good scotch for celebrating big wins. I placed them gently on the table. "Good luck, Lucas," I said. "You're going to need it." "I don't need luck," he scoffed. "I have the talent. You were just the grunt work, Will. I'm the visionary." I walked to the door. I didn't look back at the framed awards on the wall. I didn't look at the model of the city library we were building. I just walked out into the hallway, past the receptionist, Julie, who looked at me with confused, teary eyes. She knew something was wrong. "Mr. Hartman?" she asked as I passed her desk. "Take the rest of the week off, Julie," I told her softly. "Trust me." I walked out of the building and into the cool autumn air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. I saw the black Porsche parked right in the loading zone, hazard lights blinking. Entitled, just like him. I walked 3 blocks to the public parking garage where my 5-year-old truck was parked. I got in, locked the doors, and just sat there. I didn't turn the engine on. I just gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I should have been devastated. I should have been crying. I had just lost a multi-million-dollar company. But as I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, a strange thing happened. The corners of my mouth twitched. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knows the bomb has already been planted, and he's the only one who knows where the timer is. I drove home, made myself a sandwich, and slept better than I had in 5 years. The next morning, at 8:03 a.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Lucas. It was Victor Reyes. I let it ring 3 times. 4 times. On the 5th ring, I picked up. "Hello," I said, my voice groggy, pretending I had just woken up. "Hartman." Victor's voice came through the speaker so loud it distorted. He wasn't using his smooth, courtroom voice anymore. He was shrieking. "What did you do? What the hell did you do?" "I signed the papers, Victor," I said calmly, taking a sip of coffee. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. Hartman Design Studio is 100% Lucas's problem now. There's no assets." Victor screamed. "I'm looking at the accounts. The operating capital is gone. The client list, it's empty. The Westfield contract. Where is the Westfield contract?" "Oh, that," I said, walking out onto my balcony. "You didn't read the fine print on the restructuring documents I filed last month, did you? You were so busy threatening me with fake abuse charges that you forgot to check the corporate filings. You son of a..." Lucas wanted the firm. I cut him off. He got the firm. He got the name. He got the lease on the office, which, by the way, is due next week. $30,000. I heard a crash on the other end of the line. It sounded like a phone being thrown against a wall. But to understand how I pulled this off, how I tricked a shark lawyer and my sociopathic brother into stealing a worthless shell while I walked away with the millions, we have to go back. We have to go back to the beginning, to the moment I realized my brother wasn't just a screw-up, but a monster. We have to go back 5 years, to the day our mother died. 5 years ago, life was different. Harder but simpler. I was 29. Lucas was 25. Our father had passed away when we were kids, a heart attack at 42, leaving our mother, Eleanor, to raise us alone. She was a saint, a tough, no-nonsense woman who worked double shifts as a nurse to keep food on the table. She always had a soft spot for Lucas. Maybe because he was the baby. Maybe because he looked so much like Dad. Whatever the reason, Lucas got the new sneakers. I got the hand-me-downs. Lucas got forgiveness. I got the lectures about responsibility. I didn't mind, mostly. I loved him. I wanted to protect him. I was the big brother. That was my job. I started Hartman Design Studio in our mother's detached garage. It wasn't glamorous. In the summer, it was a sweatbox. In the winter, I had to wear fingerless gloves to draw because the space heater kept tripping the breaker. But I had a vision. I wanted to build sustainable, affordable housing that didn't look like concrete boxes. Lucas wanted to be rich. Not successful, rich. There's a difference. He bounced from major to major in college. racking up debt that Mom quietly paid off. Then he tried to be a day trader, then a real estate flipper. Every time he failed, he came home with a smile and a sad story, and Mom would open her checkbook. Then came the night of the charity gala. I had just landed my first real commercial contract, a small renovation for a local bank. I bought 2 tickets to the Hospital Foundation Gala, thinking it would be good networking. I took Mom. She looked beautiful in her old blue dress. Lucas showed up late, and he wasn't alone. Walking beside him was a woman who stopped traffic. That red dress she wore seemed to absorb all the light in the room. She was stunning, yes, but there was something sharp about her. Her eyes scanned the room not with curiosity, but with calculation, assessing value. "William, Mom," Lucas grinned, his arm around her waist. "This is Isabella. She's a model and an art consultant." Isabella smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Lucas has told me so much about you, Eleanor. And the architect." She said my profession like it was a hobby. That night I watched her work the room. She didn't talk to anyone who made less than 6 figures. She clung to Lucas, whispering in his ear, laughing too loudly at his jokes. I saw her pull him aside when a waiter came with the bill for their drinks, and I saw Lucas fumble for his wallet, which was empty. He looked at me. I sighed and put my card down. Isabella looked at my card. Then she looked at me. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw contempt. She was annoyed that the golden goose was actually the brother with the calloused hands, not the pretty boy in the rented tuxedo. 6 months later, Mom got sick. Pancreatic cancer. It was fast and brutal. I moved my office into the hospital room. I took calls from contractors while changing for bags. I slept in the chair next to her bed. Lucas visited twice a week. He would breeze in, smelling of cologne, hold her hand for 10 minutes, complain about how hard it was to find parking, and then leave. Isabella never came. She hated hospitals, Lucas said. One night, about a week before the end, Mom woke up. She was lucid, which was rare by then. The morphine usually kept her under. "William," she whispered. Her hand was so thin it felt like holding a bird. "I'm here, Mom." "The letter," she rasped. "In my safe. The blue envelope. Do not open it. Until you need to." "Need to? Need to what?" "Until you need to save yourself," she said. Her eyes were intense, focused. "Lucas, he is weak. He is my heart, but he is weak. She will eat him alive. And she will come for you." "Isabella?" Mom nodded. A tear leaked out of the corner of her eye. "Protect the family, William, but protect yourself first. Promise me." "I promise, Mom." She died 3 days later. The funeral was a blur of black suits and casseroles. But the reading of the will, that is burned into my memory with crystal clarity. We gathered in the office of Mr. Patterson, the family attorney. He was an old friend of Dad's. The room was somber until Isabella walked in. She wasn't even family, but she sat right next to Lucas, holding his hand like she was the grieving widow. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "To my son William, I leave the family home and the contents of the safe." Isabella squeezed Lucas's hand. I saw her knuckles turn white. "To my son Lucas," Patterson continued, "I leave the sum of $150,000 from my life insurance policy." Lucas sat up straighter. A grin started to form. "However," Patterson raised a hand, "this money is to be placed in a trust. The trustee shall be William Hartman. The funds are to be dispensed in monthly allowances over a period of 5 years. If Lucas contests this will, the money is forfeited to charity." The silence in the room was deafening. "What?" Lucas stood up. "She can't do that. I'm 30 years old. I'm not a child." "It was your mother's wish, Lucas," Patterson said gently. "She wanted to ensure you had long-term stability. This is your doing." Lucas spun on me, his face red. "You poisoned her against me. You made her think I couldn't handle money." "Lucas, sit down," I said calmly. "Mom knew about the gambling debts. She knew about the credit cards." "Shut up," he screamed. Isabella stood up slowly. She didn't scream. She was much more dangerous than that. She placed a hand on Lucas's chest, calming him instantly. "It's fine, baby," she cooed. She looked at me with eyes that were cold, dead sharks. "We'll figure it out. William is a reasonable man. He's family. He won't let his little brother starve, will he?" That look. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration of war. As we walked out to the parking lot, I tried to talk to Lucas. "Luke, listen. The trust is for your own good. I'll make sure you have enough for rent, for groceries. We can invest the rest." Lucas pulled away from me. He got into Isabella's car, a modest sedan back then. As she started the engine, she rolled down the window. "Inheritance is a tricky thing, William," she said. "It reveals who people really are." She was right. I just didn't know she was talking about herself. Over the next year, I focused on the firm. I buried my grief in work. We won the bid for the city library. We hired 3 new architects. Hartman Design Studio was becoming a major player in the state. I bought a nice house, put money into my retirement, and felt like I was finally building the life I wanted. But in the background, the storm was brewing. Lucas and Isabella moved into a luxury apartment they couldn't afford. Lucas didn't get a job. Why would he? He had his allowance. Every month, I transferred $2,500 to him. It was a decent amount, enough to live on if you were careful. They weren't careful. The request started small. "Hey Will, car broke down. Need $500. I sent it. "Will, Isabella needs dental work. It's not covered. $1,200. I sent it. "Will, we want to start a business. An import-export thing. Just need $5,000 for inventory." That was the first time I said no. "I can't do that, Luke," I told him over the phone. "The trust has strict rules. And my personal money isn't an ATM. "You're selfish," he spat. "You're sitting on a gold mine with that firm, and you won't help your own brother start a career? Get a business plan," I said. "Show me the numbers. Then we'll talk." He hung up. Silence for 2 weeks. I thought maybe he was actually writing a business plan. I was naive. Then came the phone call that nearly broke me. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Will." Lucas's voice was ragged, broken. He was sobbing. "Luke, what's wrong?" I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I messed up, Will. I messed up bad." He was hyperventilating. I've been using again. Pills. Coke. I can't stop. I'm going to die, Will. I need help." My blood ran cold. Drug addiction. It explained the mood swings, the money problems. "Okay," I said, already out of bed and pulling on my jeans. "Okay, we'll get you help. Where are you?" "I found a place," he cried. "Sunset Hills. It's the best rehab in the state. But they need payment up front. Insurance won't cover it because it's pre-existing." "How much?" $35,000. For a 90-day program. 35 grand. That was a huge chunk of my personal savings. It was the money I had set aside for a down payment on a new office building. But this was my brother's life. "I'll wire it directly to the facility in the morning," I said. "No," he panicked. "No, you can't. They need a cashier's check or a wire today to hold the bed. If I don't get in now, I'll lose my nerve. Please, Will. Just wire it to my account. I'll pay them. Isabella is driving me there right now." I paused. Something felt off. But the desperation in his voice sounded so real. "Please," he whispered. "Mom would want you to save me. That was the kill shot." "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." I wired the money at 9 a.m. $35,000. I spent the next month worrying, praying. I called Lucas, but his phone was off. "No phones allowed in rehab," I told myself. Then, for weeks later, I was meeting a client at a high-end bistro downtown. I was early, so I sat at the bar. And then I saw it. Pulling up to the valet was a brand new, highlighter yellow Lamborghini Urus. And stepping out of the driver's seat was Isabella. She wasn't wearing cheap clothes anymore. She was draped in designer silk. And walking around the car to join her was Lucas. He looked tan, healthy, not like someone detoxing in a facility. My stomach dropped. I walked out, leaving my client inside. Lucas. He froze. He saw me. For a second, he looked terrified. Then, Isabella grabbed his arm and whispered something. He straightened up. "Hey, Will," he said, casually adjusting his sunglasses. "You're supposed to be in rehab," I said, my voice shaking. "I paid $35,000 for rehab." "I went," he lied. I checked out early. I'm cured. It was a miracle. And the car. I pointed at the Lamborghini. "Lease," Isabella cut in. "A gift. From a friend." "You stole from me," I said, stepping closer. "You faked an addiction to steal 35 grand? It was my money anyway," Lucas shouted, causing people on the sidewalk to turn and stare. "It's my inheritance. You're just hoarding it." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized Mom was right. He wasn't just weak. He was rotten. "That's the last cent you ever get from me," I said. "Don't call me. Don't come to the office. You're cut off." I turned and walked away. But I was wrong. It wasn't the last cent. Because they weren't done taking. Cutting off a narcissist is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It doesn't stop them. It just makes them explode. The week after the Lamborghini incident, things started to get weird at the office. First, it was the IT department. My sysadmin, Dave, came into my office looking worried. "Someone's been trying to access the payroll accounts remotely," Dave said. "Using your credentials." "From where?" "IP address traces back to a luxury condo complex in Cherry Creek. Isabella and Lucas's apartment." "Change everything," I ordered. 2-factor authentication on everything. Passwords, bank pins, vendor portals. Lock it down. Then the rumors started. I had clients calling me, asking awkward questions. "William, is everything okay with the firm's liquidity?" Margaret Chen, the CEO of Westfield and my biggest client, asked me over lunch. "We're stronger than ever, Margaret." "Why?" She hesitated. I received an email, anonymously. It claimed that Hartman Design is under investigation for structural negligence on the library project. It said you were cutting corners to pay off gambling debts. My blood boiled. That is a lie. A malicious, actionable lie. "I believe you," Margaret said, touching my arm. "But you know how boards are. They get nervous. Fix this, William." I hired a private investigator the next day. A guy named Vance. Ex-FBI, built like a vending machine, charged like a surgeon. "I want everything on Isabella Cruz," I told him. "Who she is, where she comes from, and what she's doing to my brother." While Vance worked, the attacks escalated. It was a Tuesday night, 3 a.m. My phone buzzed. It was the security system alert from Mom's house. I hadn't sold the house yet. I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was full of her things. Her smell. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. My heart stopped. 2 figures were in the living room. Flashlights cut through the darkness. One was wearing a hoodie, the other a trench coat. But I knew them. I knew the way Lucas walked, a sort of lazy shuffle. And I knew Isabella's silhouette. They were ransacking the place. I watched on the tiny screen as Lucas pulled paintings off the wall. Paintings our grandmother had painted. He threw them on the floor when he realized they weren't valuable masters. "Where is it?" I heard Isabella's voice on the audio feed. "You said she had silver. Real sterling." "It's in the sideboard," Lucas grunted. I watched my brother, the boy I taught to ride a bike, smash the lock on Mom's antique sideboard. He started shoveling the silverware into a duffel bag. The forks we used for Thanksgiving. The serving spoon Mom used for her potato salad. "Got it," he said. Then he stopped. He looked right at the camera mounted in the corner. He pulled down his mask. He smirked. "She loved me more anyway," he said to the camera. "Take the silver. It's my inheritance." My finger hovered over the call police button on the app. I could send the cops there right now. Breaking and entering. Grand larceny. They would be arrested within 10 minutes. But then I thought about the firm. The scandal. Prominent architect's brother arrested for robbing dead mother's home. The headlines would destroy the reputation I was trying to save with the Westfield board. And there was something else. A gut feeling. A whisper from Mom's letter. Wait until you need to. I didn't call the police. Instead, I hit download. I saved the video to a secure cloud server. Keep digging, I whispered to the screen. Dig your grave a little deeper. 2 days later, the lawsuit landed on my desk. Lucas Hartman versus William Hartman. He was suing to dissolve the trust. He was suing for breach of fiduciary duty. He claimed I was mismanaging his money, that I was emotionally abusive, and this was the kicker, that I had coerced our mother into signing the will while she was under the influence of heavy narcotics. They weren't just coming for the money anymore. They were coming for my integrity. They were trying to rewrite history to make me the villain. I called Sarah, my lawyer. "This is bad, Will," she said, flipping through the filing. "They have an affidavit here from a nurse, Maria Gonzalez." "Who?" "She was a hospice nurse. She claims she heard you threatening your mother the night before she signed the will." I sat back, stunned. "That's a lie. I never—" "Wait, Maria? The night shift nurse? I fired her 2 days before Mom died because I caught her sleeping on the job." "Well, she's their star witness now," Sarah said grimly. "And if this goes to trial, it will drag on for years. Your assets will be frozen. The firm's accounts could be frozen pending an audit. The Westfield project. You'll lose it. So what do they want?" "Settlement," Sarah said. "They want the trust dissolved. They want a lump sum of $500,000. And they want 20% of the firm's future profits." "Never," I said. "If you don't settle, they'll destroy you in the press, Will. Even if we win in court, the business will be dead." I went home that night feeling like a cornered animal. I poured a whiskey and sat in the dark. Then my doorbell rang. It was Vance, the PI. He was holding a thick manila envelope. "You're going to want to sit down for this, Mr. Hartman," he said. He tossed the envelope on the coffee table. Photos spilled out. "Her name isn't Isabella Cruz," Vance said. "It's Elena Voronova. She's been married 3 times. Once in Miami, once in London, once in Dubai." I picked up a photo. It was Isabella, 5 years younger, hanging off the arm of an older man. "What happened to the husbands?" I asked. "First one went bankrupt. Second one committed suicide after losing his company. Third one is currently in prison for embezzlement. Claims she set him up." "She's a black widow," I whispered. "She's a pro," Vance corrected. "And she's not just after the trust fund, William. She wants the whole pie." I found emails. "She's been talking to a developer in Chicago. She's trying to sell them the client list of Hartman Design. She's pre-selling your company before she even owns it." My hands shook. Not from fear this time, from rage. "She's going to destroy everything Mom worked for. Everything I worked for." "She will," Vance said. "Unless you stop her." I looked at the photos. Then I looked at the wall safe where I kept Mom's blue envelope. "Do not open until you need to." I walked over to the safe. I punched in the code Mom's birthday. The door clicked open. I took out the blue envelope. It smelled like lavender, her favorite scent. I tore it open. There was a single sheet of paper, written in her shaky, dying handwriting, and a USB drive. "My dearest William, if you are reading this, it means Lucas has not changed. It means my hope was wrong, and your fear was right. I knew about the loans he took out in my name. I knew about the forged checks. I covered for him because I loved him too much to let him go to jail. That was my sin, and I am sorry I left you to pay for it. But I also did my homework. I hired a man, Mr. Torres, before I got sick. On this drive, you will find recordings. Lucas admitted to me that he stole from your father's pension fund years ago. He admitted it to my face, William, and I recorded it. I also have proof that Isabella, or whatever she calls herself, was accessing my bank accounts before I died. I let it happen so I could track the IP addresses. She is dangerous. Do not fight her with honor. She does not know honor. Protect yourself first. Saving him means letting him fall. Sometimes the only way to save a drowning man who fights you is to let him go under, and pull him out only when he stops thrashing. Do what you must. I love you, Mom. I sat there for a long time. Tears streamed down my face. She knew. She had been playing 4D chess while dying of cancer, just to give me a weapon from beyond the grave. I wiped my eyes. I looked at the USB drive. I picked up my phone and called Sarah. Don't go to Tokyo yet, I said. We have work to do. What kind of work? She asked, hearing the change in my voice. We're going to restructure, I said coldly. We're going to give them exactly what they want, and we're going to make sure they choke on it. The next 72 hours were a blur of caffeine, paper shredders, and intense legal maneuvering. I called an emergency meeting with Sarah and Marcus, my CFO. Marcus was a quiet guy, a grandfather of 4 who loved Excel spreadsheets more than people. When I explained the plan, he didn't blink. He just cracked his knuckles and said, "Let's cook. The goal," I told them, drawing on the whiteboard, "is a strategic surrender. We need to make the firm look like the prize, while secretly turning it into a bomb. Step 1, the shell game. Hartman Design Studio, LLC was the target. That was the entity Lucas was suing for. So, we registered a new corporation, Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners, RMAP. We move the assets, Sarah instructed. The physical assets, computers, servers, the expensive plotters, we sell them to RMAP for a nominal fee. Legitimate depreciation allows for this. What about the contracts? I asked. The Westfield Library. That's the crown jewel. The contract has a clause, Marcus pointed out, tapping his screen. Clause 14b, key man provision. If William Hartman is no longer the lead architect, the client has the right to terminate the contract immediately. Perfect, I said. I'll draft a termination letter from my side, effective the moment I resign. Then RMAP will pitch a new contract to Westfield the next day. I've already talked to Margaret Chin. She's in on it. She hates Lucas. Step 2, the poison pill. We need to load the old LLC with debt, Sarah said. Legitimate debt. The lease, Marcus noted. The lease on this office building is up for renewal. It's a 5-year commitment, personal guarantee required, unless the signer is the majority shareholder. So if Lucas signs as majority owner, I smiled. He absorbs the liability. Exactly. Plus, there's the outstanding vendor payments, about $80,000 due next month, and the severance packages for the staff we're laying off, who will be immediately rehired by RMAP. We built a Trojan horse. From the outside, Hartman Design Studio looked like a thriving $1 million firm. Inside, it was a hollow shell filled with debt, broken contracts, and looming lawsuits. Step 3, the personal assets. I couldn't risk my house or my personal savings. Irrevocable trust, Sarah said. We move your house, your car, and your investment accounts into a trust managed by a third party. You lose direct control, but they become untouchable in a lawsuit. We can dissolve it later once the threat is gone. It was risky. If I messed up one signature, I could actually lose everything. But I had Mom's voice in my head. Do not fight with honor. I spent the last night in my office packing boxes. I took the photos of me and Lucas as kids. I took the first dollar bill I ever earned. I took Mom's letter. I left everything else. The expensive ergonomic chairs, the 3D printers, the awards. Let them have the furniture. I was taking the talent. At 6 a.m., the morning of the meeting, I stood on the balcony looking at the Denver skyline. The sun was hitting the Rockies, turning them pink and gold. I felt a strange calm. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the architect, and I had just designed a prison for my brother. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. Be there at 9 sharp. Don't be late. Or we release the nurse's statement to the press. I typed back. I'll be there. I put on my suit. Not my best suit. I wanted to look tired, defeated. I skipped shaving. I let my shoulders slump. I looked in the mirror. Showtime, William. I drove to the office, parked my truck, and walked in. The team, my real team, was already gone. They had cleared out their personal items the night before. The office felt ghostly. I walked into the conference room. Lucas and Isabella were already there, gloating. Victor Reyes was arranging his papers. "You look like hell, big brother," Lucas laughed. "Let's just get this over with," I muttered, dropping into the chair. It was time to spring the trap. The tension in the room was brittle, ready to snap. Victor Reyes pushed the document stack toward me. "As discussed," he said, his voice oily with false sympathy. "You transfer 51% of your shares to Lucas Hartman. In exchange, Lucas drops the lawsuit regarding the trust fund." "And the nurse?" I asked, looking at my hands. "The affidavit?" "Burned," Isabella said. She was filing her nails. "Once the ink is dry, Maria Gonzalez disappears. Nobody has to know you abused your dying mother." I clenched my jaw. It took every ounce of self-control not to reach across the table and wipe that smirk off her face. "Show, don't tell," I reminded myself. "Show them the broken man." "There's one more thing," Lucas said. I looked up. "What?" "I want the non-compete extended," he said, leaning forward. 5 years. You can't practice architecture in Colorado for 5 years. "Lucas, that's my livelihood," I said, letting my voice crack. "I can't move. My life is here." "Not my problem," he shrugged. "You can flip burgers. Or maybe you can ask me for a job. I might need a janitor." Isabella laughed, a cruel tinkling sound. "And we want a consulting fee," she added, "for the stress you caused us. $200,000. From your personal savings." "I don't have that kind of cash liquid," I lied. "Sell the truck," she said. "Sell your watch. Figure it out." I looked at Sarah's empty chair. I wished she was here to see this, to see the greed in its purest form. "Fine," I whispered. "Add it to the agreement." Victor Reyes's eyes lit up. He quickly scribbled an addendum on the back page. "Initial here and here." I picked up the pen. This was the moment, the point of no return. I hesitated. I let my hand hover over the paper. "Getting cold feet?" Lucas taunted. "Remember, Will, the press release is already written. Local architect accused of elder abuse. It goes out at noon if you don't sign." I looked at him. I tried to find any trace of the brother I loved. The kid who cried when his goldfish died. The teenager who defended me when bullies called me a nerd. He wasn't there. There was only a hollow man in a fancy suit. I signed. William J. Hartman. I signed the stock transfer. I signed the resignation. I signed the addendum promising them $200,000 I would never pay. With every signature, I felt a chain breaking. They thought they were binding me, but they were setting me free. "Done," I said, capping the pen. Lucas snatched the papers. He held them up like a trophy. "Finally," he breathed. "It's mine. It's finally mine." "Congratulations, Mr. CEO," Isabella said, kissing him on the cheek. She looked at me. "You can go now. We have redecorating to do. This office is too rustic." I stood up. "The keys are on the table." I turned to leave. "Hey, Will," Lucas called out. I stopped at the door. "Don't expect an invite to the wedding," he said. "We only want successful people there." I didn't answer. I just walked out. As the elevator doors closed, I pulled out my phone. I dialed Sarah. "It's done," I said. "They signed everything." "Did they read the exhibit regarding the debt assumption?" she asked. "Nope. They barely looked at the pages." "Good," Sarah said. "I'm filing the papers with the Secretary of State right now. As of this moment, Lucas is the legal owner of all Hartman Design Studios liabilities. And I'm sending the termination notice to Westfield." "Do it," I said. I walked to my truck. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt exhilaratingly dangerous. That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't go out. I went home, turned off all the lights, and sat on my balcony watching the city lights. I knew what was happening across town. Lucas and Isabella were probably popping champagne. They were probably looking at Zillow for mansions. They were probably calling their friends to brag about how they had finally defeated me. They had no idea that the timer was ticking down to 0. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear. It was a perfect Colorado day. I made coffee, the good stuff Ethiopian blend. I sat on my patio furniture, barefoot. At 8 a.m., the business day started. At 8:01 a.m., Margaret Chun sent an email to the official Hartman Design Studio address, which Lucas now controlled. Subject: Contract Termination, Westfield Library Project. Dear Mr. Hartman, Lucas, per Clause 14b, referencing the departure of lead architect William Hartman, Westfield Development is exercising its right to terminate our agreement effective immediately. Please cease all work. We will be seeking a refund of the initial deposit of $150,000. That was the first domino. At 8:15 a.m., the landlord's automated system sent a notification. Rent reminder, $32,000 due within 48 hours. Please note that the personal guarantee is now attached to the majority shareholder, Lucas Hartman. Second domino. At 8:30 a.m., the payroll company sent an alert. Insufficient funds. The operating account for payroll is overdrawn by $12,000. Please deposit funds immediately to avoid legal penalties. Because I had legally transferred the liquid cash to the new company as consulting fees for closing out the old projects before I resigned. And then, at 8:45 a.m., the FBI knocked on a door. Not my door. I had given the USB drive, the one with Mom's evidence of Isabella's wire fraud and identity theft, to Vance. Vance had given it to his contacts at the bureau. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. Victor Reyes. The scream was visceral. It wasn't just anger. It was the sound of a man realizing his career was over. You tricked us, he shrieked. This company is insolvent. It's nothing but debt. I didn't trick you, Victor, I said calmly. I provided full documentation. You're a lawyer. Did you not conduct due diligence? You hid the assets. I sold the assets to a third party at fair market value to pay down outstanding operational costs. I recited the script Sarah had written. It's all in the ledger. The client canceled, he yelled. Westfield canceled. Well, they hired me, I said. Not the firm. They wanted an architect, not a con artist. I'm going to sue you. With what money? I asked. Lucas has no money. The firm has no money. And you, Victor, just advised your client to sign a document assuming $400,000 in immediate liabilities. I think you should be worried about a malpractice suit. I hung up. 5 minutes later, Lucas called. I debated not answering, but I needed to hear it. I needed closure. Will? His voice wasn't angry. It was small, terrified, like when we were kids and he broke Mom's favorite vase. Will, the FBI is here. They're arresting Isabella. I took a sip of coffee. I know. They're taking the Porsche. They're freezing everything. Will, they're asking about the silver. About Mom's house. I gave them the video, Lucas, I said softly. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. You turned me in? No. You turned yourself in when you looked at that camera and laughed about our dead mother. Will, please. You have to help me. They're talking about prison. Federal prison. I can't go to prison. I'm your brother. You were my brother, I said. Now? You're just a lesson I had to learn. Will, don't hang up. Will, please. I'm sorry. I'll sign it back. Take the firm back. I don't want it, I said. I built a new one. A better one. Will, I ended the call. Then I blocked the number. I sat there for a long time, listening to the birds chirp. The air felt cleaner, lighter. It was over. The leech was gone. The threat was neutralized. But the story didn't end there, because justice in the real world isn't just about winning. It's about what you build from the ashes. And what happened next, the trial, the sentencing, and the strange, quiet moment at the cemetery a year later, That is the part that taught me what forgiveness really means. 3 months passed between the morning Victor Reyes screamed into my phone and the day I finally stepped into the federal courthouse downtown. Those 3 months were a masterclass in controlled chaos. While Lucas and Isabella were drowning in the legal and financial tsunami I had unleashed, I was quietly building something real. Rocky Mountain Architecture Partners wasn't just a new name. It was a new philosophy. We set up shop in a converted warehouse in the Arts District. Exposed brick, high ceilings, lots of natural light. No mahogany tables, no pretension, just architects doing the work we loved. We rehired the entire team. Julie, my receptionist, cried when I handed her the new contract with a 5% raise. Margaret Chin and Westfield stuck by us not just out of loyalty, but because they knew the quality of our work. We broke ground on the library project 2 weeks after the collapse of the old firm. But while my professional life was soaring, the shadow of the trial loomed over everything. The federal indictment was a heavy document. Wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit larceny. The FBI didn't play games. Because Isabella had crossed state lines with stolen funds and used the internet to commit her crimes, the feds had jurisdiction. I remember walking up the granite steps of the courthouse. The air was crisp, that specific Colorado blue sky overhead that makes everything look sharp and high definition. Sarah walked beside me, her heels clicking rhythmically on the stone. "You ready for this?" she asked, adjusting her briefcase. "You don't have to stay for the whole thing, William. You can give your testimony and leave." "I need to see it," I said. "I need to see the end of the story." The courtroom was freezing. It smelled of floor polish and old wood. I took a seat in the back row. When the bailiff announced the defendants, I held my breath. Isabella was brought in first. She looked diminished. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a standard-issue jumpsuit. Her hair, usually a glossy curtain of perfection, was pulled back in a messy bun. But her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, scanning the room for an exit that didn't exist. Then came Lucas. Seeing him broke my heart all over again. He had lost weight. He looked gray, shaking slightly as he sat down at the defense table. He didn't look like the arrogant man who had demanded I sign over my legacy. He looked like a scared kid who had gotten caught playing with matches, only to realize he had burned down the whole neighborhood. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I testified on the 3rd day. "Mr. Hartman," the prosecutor asked, "can you explain to the jury why you signed over your company to your brother?" "I signed it over because I had no choice," I said, looking directly at the jury. "And because I knew it was the only way to stop them from bleeding me dry. I couldn't save him from himself anymore. I had to let him have exactly what he wanted to show him it was worthless without the work behind it." Isabella's defense attorney tried to paint me as the villain, the controlling older brother who manipulated the situation to trap them. But the evidence was overwhelming. The video of the break-in, the bank transfers, the fake rehab invoice. But the real bomb, the one that shattered whatever remaining affection I had for my brother, didn't drop until the sentencing phase. Lucas had taken a plea deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he agreed to testify against Isabella regarding the full extent of her schemes. I was sitting in the front row that day. Lucas took the stand. He wouldn't look at me. "Mr. Hartman," the prosecutor said, "you stated in your deposition that Ms. Voronova, known to you as Isabella Cruz, influenced your decisions regarding your mother's care. Can you elaborate?" Lucas swallowed hard. He looked at Isabella. She was glaring at him, a look of pure venom. She told me that the inheritance was the only way we could be happy," Lucas mumbled. "Speak up, please." "She said we needed the money now," Lucas said, his voice trembling. "She said Mom was taking too long." A gasp went through the courtroom. I felt the blood drain from my face. On the night of February 14th, the prosecutor continued, consulting a file. "Your mother suffered a cardiac episode, a minor event that preceded her death by 2 months. You were at the house, were you not?" "Yes," Lucas whispered. "And what did you do?" "I wanted to call 911, Lucas said, tears starting to stream down his face. I picked up the phone, but Isabella, she was there. She put her hand on my arm. My hands gripped the wooden bench in front of me so hard I thought it might splinter. What did she say, Lucas? She said. Lucas sobbed. She said, wait, just wait 10 minutes. If it's her time, it's her time. Don't interfere with destiny, Lucas. Think of the money. Think of us. And did you wait? I waited, Lucas cried. I waited 15 minutes before I called. The doctors said. They said the damage to her heart muscle from the delay weakened her. It's why she couldn't fight the cancer at the end. It's why she died so fast. Couldn't breathe. The room spun. It wasn't just greed. It wasn't just theft. They had killed her. Maybe not legally murder. It's hard to prove a negative, hard to prove that calling 911 earlier would have saved a woman with pancreatic cancer. But morally, they had let her suffer. They had watched her clutch her chest and gasp for air. And they had looked at a clock, counting down the minutes until they could get their hands on her money. And my brother, my own brother, had stood there and let it happen. I stood up. I couldn't listen to another word. Sarah grabbed my arm. William, where are you going? I'm done, I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. I'm done with him. Forever. I walked out of the courtroom into the bright hallway. I didn't cry. I think I was past crying. I felt a cold, hard clarity settling in my chest, like concrete setting in a foundation. Isabella was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The judge called her a predator of the highest order. Lucas got 4 years. The plea deal saved him from a decade behind bars, but it didn't save him from the truth. The judge ordered mandatory drug rehabilitation and restitution, though everyone knew he would never be able to pay back what he stole. As the bailiffs led him away in handcuffs, he finally looked at me. He looked at me with those pleading, wet eyes, mouthing the word, sorry. I didn't mouth anything back. I didn't nod. I didn't shake my head. I just turned my back and walked out the double doors. Because Mom was right. Protecting yourself is the highest form of love. And sometimes, forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting go of the anger so you don't have to carry it anymore. But letting go of the anger doesn't mean you have to pick up the relationship. I drove straight to the office. I walked into the studio, where my team was arguing over the blueprints for a new community center. The noise of their debate, the smell of coffee, the rustle of paper. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. Hey, Will, Marcus called out. We're stuck on the entryway. Do we go with the cantilever or the arch? I took off my jacket, rolled up my sleeves, and walked over to the table. Let's look at the foundation, I said. If the foundation is strong, we can build whatever we want. 1 year later, the snow was fresh on the ground at Crown Hill Cemetery. It was that heavy, wet snow that blankets everything in silence. I crunched through it, my boots leaving deep tracks, holding a bouquet of purple irises wrapped in brown paper. Mom's favorite. I hadn't been here in 6 months. Life had been busy. Good busy. Our MAP was thriving. We had just won an award for sustainable design for the Westfield Library, which was finally open to the public. I had met someone, too. Her name was Claire. She was a landscape architect. She understood the long hours, the obsession with lines and light. We were taking it slow, building a foundation before we worried about the facade. I reached the headstone. Eleanor Hartman, beloved mother. I brushed the snow off the granite. Hey, Mom, I whispered. I hope you're resting easy. The house is sold. A nice young couple bought it. They're going to raise twins there. I think you'd like them. I placed the flowers against the stone. I started the foundation, I told her. The Eleanor Hartman Grant for Women in Design. We gave out our first 3 scholarships last week. You're helping people, Mom. You're still building. I stood there for a moment, listening to the wind in the bare trees. I felt a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. The ghost of the golden child no longer haunted me. The guilt of being the one who survived, the one who succeeded, was gone. Then, I heard the crunch of snow behind me. I didn't turn around at first. I knew who it was. I had received the letter from the parole board a month ago. Lucas had been released early to a halfway house for good behavior and completion of the intense substance abuse program. "Hey, Will." The voice was raspy, older. I turned slowly. Lucas was standing about 10 feet away. He looked different. The expensive haircut was gone, replaced by a simple buzz cut. He was wearing a heavy work coat and durable boots, the kind you wear when you actually work for a living, not when you're playing pretend. He looked tired, worn down, but his eyes were clear. The manic gleam was gone. "Lucas," I said. My voice was neutral. Not warm, not cold. Just a fact. He didn't step closer. He knew better. He shifted his weight, looking at the grave, then back at me. "I didn't know if you'd be here," he said. "I took the bus. It's a long walk from the stop." "It is," I agreed. "I'm working," he said, a note of desperate pride in his voice. "Framing crew. It's hard work. My hands are blistered." He held them up. They were rough, cut up. "But it's honest money. For the first time." "That's good, Lucas. I'm glad. I'm clean, Will. 1 year sober next week." "Keep it up," I said. "For yourself." He looked at me, searching for something. Forgiveness? A hug? An invitation to dinner? An offer to come back to the firm? "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I know I said it in court, but I need to say it here. In front of her. In front of you. I'm so sorry, Will. For everything. For the money. For the lies. For the night she died." I looked at him. I saw the remorse. I believed it was real. He had lost everything to find himself. "I forgive you, Lucas," I said. His shoulders sagged with relief. He took a half step forward. "Does that mean?" he started. "I forgive you," I repeated, firming my voice. "I don't carry the hate anymore. But that doesn't mean you get a seat at my table." He stopped. The hope in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a sad understanding. "We aren't enemies anymore," I told him. "But we aren't partners. We aren't friends. You chose your path and it took you away from me. I've built a new life, Lucas, and it has walls. Not to keep people out, but to keep the structure safe. You breached the foundation once. You don't get to do it again." He nodded slowly. He looked down at his boots. "I understand. I do. I wish you well," I said. "Truly. I hope you build a good life. But you have to build it yourself." "I will," he whispered. "Goodbye, Lucas." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I walked out of the cemetery, toward my truck where the heater was waiting. I didn't feel heavy. I felt light. I had spent my whole life trying to be the architect of my family, trying to prop up beams that were rotten, trying to patch roofs that were designed to leak. I had tried to save everyone but myself. But now I understood. You can design the most beautiful building in the world, but if the people inside it are trying to burn it down, you have to walk out the door. You have to let it collapse. And then you have to pick up your tools, find a new plot of land, and start over. I got into my truck and started the engine. The radio was playing a classic rock song. I put the truck in gear and drove toward the city, toward the skyline where my buildings stood tall against the mountains. I was William Hartman. I was an architect. And for the first time in my life, the blueprint I was following was my own. Friends, the story of William and Lucas is fictional, but the pain it represents is all too real for millions of people. We often talk about physical abuse or emotional manipulation, but financial abuse within families is a silent epidemic. It thrives in the shadows of duty and loyalty. What William experienced is a classic example of the sunk cost fallacy in relationships. He kept investing money, emotion, time into his brother, thinking that if he just gave a little bit more, he could save him. But the hard truth I want you to take away today is this: you cannot save someone who is actively profiting from their own destruction. Boundaries are not punishments. When William finally cut Lucas off, it wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of survival. And more importantly, it was the only thing that actually forced Lucas to change. Enabling isn't love. It's just paying for the poison. I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the William of your family? Have you ever had to make the heartbreaking choice to cut off a golden child or a toxic family member to save yourself? If you found value in this story, if it helped you see your own situation a little more clearly, please do me a favor. Drop the word "good" in the comments below. It's a small gesture, but it tells me that these lessons are landing, and it helps this video reach other people who might be trapped in the same darkness William was. Protect your peace. Build your own foundation. And remember, you are the architect of your own life. No one else holds the pen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.